A widow was left to die in the desert until a Navajo warrior risked everything to save her. The sun was a harsh eye in the sky, burning everything beneath it. The desert stretched endlessly, pale gold and white, with jagged rocks and drifting sand dunes. The wind whispered, carrying the faint scent of scorched earth, and the silence was heavy, broken only by the soft crunch of sand under her boots. Mara stumbled forward, her body weak, her throat dry, and her mind filled with the echo of the disaster that had left her here. Her ship had exploded hours ago, ripped apart by raiders she could barely name. They had come from the stars, with sharp claws of metal and cold, glowing eyes. Mara had escaped with nothing but the clothes on her back, her survival instincts, and a small water pack she had fought to keep. She had hoped someone would find her, but the desert showed no mercy. Each step was agony, each breath a struggle. Mara collapsed against a jagged rock, trying to gather the courage to stand again. She could feel the sun burning her skin and the wind stinging her eyes. Her lips cracked as she whispered to herself, "I can't die, not here." She thought of her family, gone. She thought of her home, destroyed. All that remained was the vast, empty desert. She let herself fall to her knees, her hands digging into the hot sand. For a moment she closed her eyes and surrendered to despair. But then she heard it, a faint sound, almost like the beating of wings, or the soft footfalls of someone moving across the sand. She opened her eyes just in time to see a shadow approaching over the dunes. Her heart skipped a beat. She didn't know if it was friend or foe, human or alien. Her voice cracked as she called out, "Help! Please, help me!" The figure stopped, watching her with careful eyes. It was a man, tall and strong, moving with purpose. His skin was tanned from the desert sun, his hair long and dark, braided in the traditional style of the Navajo warriors. He carried himself with a calm, quiet authority, his eyes sharp but not unkind. Mara did not recognize his uniform. There was none, but there was an air about him that spoke of skill, strength, and survival. The man spoke, his voice low and steady. "You should not be here alone. This desert does not forgive weakness." Mara's voice trembled. I have nowhere else. Please, I don't want to die." He nodded once and extended a hand. "Then do not. Stand with me, and we leave now." Mara hesitated, her body aching. Could she trust him? Everything had betrayed her until now. But something in his presence felt different, grounded, strong, human. She took his hand and he helped her to her feet. As they began to move, the man introduced himself. "I am Tyan. I am a warrior of the desert, one who knows its secrets. You are safe with me, for now." Mara managed a weak smile, grateful and wary at the same time. I'm Mara. Thank you." The desert was merciless, and every step was a challenge. The sun blazed overhead, sand whipped against their skin, and the air shimmered with heat. Mara leaned heavily on Tyan, feeling his strength supporting her. Every so often he would point to a rock formation or a shadow, guiding her to shade or a rare pool of water. "They are not far behind," Tyan said quietly, his eyes scanning the horizon. "The raiders. They move quickly. We must be careful." Mara's pulse quickened. She had hoped they were gone, that the desert had hidden her from them. But the truth was clear. The desert had not saved her. She had to rely on this stranger, this Navajo warrior, if she wanted to live. They moved cautiously, weaving between dunes and cliffs, each step a test of endurance. Tyann showed Mara how to read the desert, how to find footprints in the sand, how to sense the direction of the wind. Mara tried to follow, her mind and body pushed to the limit. She had never been in such a harsh place, never faced such danger. But she learned quickly, driven by the raw human desire to survive. Night fell, and the desert transformed. The sun was gone, replaced by a sky filled with stars so bright they seemed almost close enough to touch. The temperature dropped, sharp and cold, and Mara shivered despite her fatigue. Tyann had already built a small fire using dried brush and some clever trick with stones. He handed Mara a piece of flatbread he had carried, and she ate hungrily, savoring the warmth and sustenance. "Rest now," Tyann said. "The desert tests those who walk alone. You will need your strength tomorrow." Mara wanted to ask him questions, who he was, why he was here, but exhaustion claimed her. She curled next to the fire, letting the warmth seep into her bones, and allowed herself to sleep. In her dreams, she saw flashes of the ship exploding, the aliens' glowing eyes, and the endless sand stretching before her. But there was also Tyann, his presence steady, his strength a shield. She woke with the first light of dawn, the fire now nothing more than smoldering embers. Tyann was already moving, scanning the horizon. "We must continue," he said. "The raiders will not give up so easily. The desert is wide, but they are relentless." Mara nodded, pushing herself up. She felt her body protesting every movement, but she forced herself forward. Step by step, she learned to endure, to follow Tyann's lead, to trust his guidance. She began to understand the way of the desert, and through it, the way of humans, adaptable, resilient, and courageous even in the face of death. By mid-morning, they reached a narrow canyon that cut through the desert like a wound. The wind howled through it, carrying dust and sand. Tyann motioned for Mara to stay low. "They could be anywhere," he whispered. "Watch the shadows." Mara pressed herself against the rock wall, heart pounding. She had never felt such fear and exhilaration at the same time. Every sound, every movement of sand made her tense. The desert was alive, a dangerous being, but she was not alone. She had Tyann, and together they could face this emptiness. Suddenly, a faint hum echoed through the canyon. Mara's eyes widened. Tyann's face tightened. "Drones," he muttered. "The raiders sent scouts. Stay close, and do not speak." They moved silently, Tyann leading, Mara following. The drones were small, fast, and vicious, their sensors glowing in the dim light of the canyon. But Tyann had trained for this. He guided Mara to a narrow ledge, out of their path, and whispered instructions. "Stay here. Move only when I signal. Watch, learn, survive." Mara obeyed, her fear sharp but controlled. She watched Tyann disappear from view, moving like a shadow among the rocks. Moments later, the drone swept past, missing her hiding place. She held her breath, heart hammering, until Tyann returned, his face calm but eyes fierce. "They did not see you," he said. "But we must not linger. The desert does not forgive hesitation." Mara nodded, understanding now that survival was not just about strength. It was about wisdom, patience, and trust. She looked at Tyann and felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humans could endure even this unforgiving desert, and even the darkest threats could be faced with courage. They continued, the canyon narrowing, the sun climbing higher. Mara's body ached, but her spirit burned brighter. She had been left to die, abandoned by fate and chance, yet here she was, guided by a human warrior who risked everything to save her. She did not yet know what lay ahead, but she knew one thing with certainty. As long as Tyan was by her side, she would fight for every breath, every step, every moment of life. The desert stretched endlessly before them, a silent, golden sea. But Mara felt a new strength within her. She was no longer alone. And, for the first time in hours, or perhaps days, she believed she might survive. And somewhere deep in the desert, beneath the blazing sun and the endless dunes, a human heart beat against the odds, a warrior ready to face the impossible, and a widow who would learn to endure and to trust again. The desert sun burned brighter, relentless and merciless, as Mara and Tyan moved deeper into the canyon. The sand had turned hot and sharp, cutting through her worn boots. Every step was agony. But Mara forced herself to follow. She had survived the wreckage of her ship, the betrayal of chance, and the emptiness of this desert. She could survive this too. She had to. Tyan walked ahead, his eyes scanning every shadow, every ridge, every rock. He moved silently but deliberately, like a predator who had learned patience and observation. His body was a map of strength, trained and honed by the harsh desert of his ancestors. Mara tried to mirror him, copying his careful steps, feeling the ground with her feet, sensing the faint vibrations of the canyon. "They are close," Tyan said quietly. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of warning. "The raiders are not far behind. They will not leave you alive if they catch us." Mara's throat tightened. "How do you know?" Tyan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pointed to the sand, to tiny ridges and marks she almost missed. "Tracks. They move fast, but they leave traces. The wind hides them sometimes, but the desert never forgets." Mara squinted, trying to see what he saw. Tiny impressions, shallow depressions in the sand, hardly noticeable. But Tyan's trained eyes followed them easily. The desert was full of danger, but it also offered secrets, and he knew them all. As they moved, a faint hum began to echo through the canyon. Mara froze, her heart pounding. The sound grew louder, mechanical, cold. Alien drones. The raiders had sent scouts, and they had found them. Tyan didn't panic. He crouched behind a jagged rock and motioned for Mara to do the same. "Stay low. Move only when I tell you." Mara pressed herself to the rock, her pulse racing. She had faced death before, but this felt different. These were not explosions or accidents. These were creatures built for hunting, relentless and intelligent. She watched the drones move past, their sensors glowing with alien light. Tyan's presence calmed her, though. He was confident, prepared. She felt small but protected. When the drones finally passed, Tyan motioned for Mara to follow.
"We have to move quickly. They will report back."
"If they find a way to call reinforcements, we will be surrounded." They climbed over sharp rocks and navigated narrow ledges. The desert canyon seemed alive with threats. Sand shifted unpredictably, and every gust of wind brought a new risk. Mara stumbled, but Tyan's hand caught hers, steadying her. "You must learn to trust your instincts," he said quietly. "The desert teaches, but only if you listen." Mara nodded, swallowing her fear. She had survived through instinct before, but now she realized she had a guide, someone who could teach her not just to survive, but to endure and outsmart the danger. Hours passed, the sun slowly sinking, casting long shadows across the canyon floor. They found a small pool of water nearly hidden in a depression surrounded by rocks. Tyan signaled for Mara to drink first, and she did, greedily. feeling the cool water slide down her parched throat. "You are stronger than you think," Tyan said. "Do not let the desert convince you otherwise." Mara's eyes filled with tears, not from weakness, but from gratitude and fear. She had been abandoned by chance, by her ship, by the world, and yet here was a man who risked everything to save her, someone who had chosen to stand in the storm with her. Night fell, and with it came the cold. The desert's mercy vanished with the sun. Mara shivered as Tyan gathered dry brush and built a small fire. Its warmth was fragile but precious, a tiny shield against the endless dark. "They will come again," Tyan said as they sat by the fire. "We must rest, but not too long. The desert is unforgiving and the raiders are patient." Mara nodded, her exhaustion pulling at her eyelids. "I am not used to this," she admitted. "I don't know if I can keep going." Tyan looked at her, his eyes steady and piercing. "You can. Humans survive because we endure, because we adapt, and because we fight when others would give up."
"Do you want to live, Mara?" "Yes," she whispered. "Then you will," he said simply.
"The desert does not grant mercy. We make our own." The night passed slowly. Mara slept fitfully, haunted by dreams of her ship, the raiders, and the endless desert. But Tyan remained awake, alert to every sound, every movement. When a faint hum echoed again, he was ready. The drones had returned, circling like predators. Tyan stood, gathering Mara. "We move now. Follow me and do exactly as I say." They climbed the rocky canyon walls, moving with silent precision. The drones spotted them briefly, but Tyan's knowledge of the terrain allowed them to escape detection. Mara felt a thrill of awe and fear. This man had trained for these moments, had lived for them, and now he risked his life for her. By dawn, they reached a narrow ridge overlooking the desert floor. Tyan scanned the horizon. The drones were gone, but he knew reinforcements could arrive at any moment. He turned to Mara. "We are not safe yet," he said, "but the desert has given us a chance."
Use it. Learn from it.
Adapt. Survive. Mara watched him, feeling a spark of determination. She had been left to die, abandoned in a vast, merciless wasteland. But now, with Tyan by her side, she felt a new strength growing inside her. The desert was harsh, the raiders relentless, but she was human. And humans survived against all odds. For the first time since the ship exploded, Mara felt hope. Not the fragile hope of waiting for rescue, but the active hope of fighting, enduring, and surviving. She would not be a victim. She would not be left behind. With Tyan, she would face the desert and whatever other dangers awaited, with courage. They descended the ridge, moving silently. The canyon stretched ahead, dangerous and unpredictable. But Mara no longer felt weak. She felt alive. Every step was a victory, every breath a triumph over despair. Suddenly, Tyan stopped. He crouched low, eyes scanning. Mara froze beside him. A group of drones appeared on the horizon, moving swiftly, their sensors glowing. Tyan's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "Stay calm," he whispered. "Watch and learn. The desert has taught you well. Now use it." He led Mara in a careful maneuver, using rocks and shadows to stay hidden. When the drones passed, Tyan struck with precision, using small devices he had crafted from salvaged materials to distract them. Mara watched, amazed. These were not weapons of brute force, tools of human ingenuity and strategy. The drones scattered, confused. Tyan motioned for Mara to follow. She moved quickly, silently, amazed at how he navigated danger with skill and calm. By mid-morning, they reached a small cave hidden in the cliffs. Tyan signaled for Mara to enter. Inside, it was cool and shaded, a rare sanctuary. He handed her a piece of dried meat and water. She ate and drank eagerly, feeling her strength slowly return. "You are learning," Tyan said quietly. "The desert tests all who enter it. Few survive alone. You have survived because you are human. You endure." Mara smiled weakly. "And you risk everything for me. Why?" Tyan looked at her, his expression calm but intense. "Because no one should die when there is a chance to survive. Because we are humans, and humans protect one another. That is what we do." Mara felt tears well up in her eyes. She had been left to die, abandoned in a place where the sun burned and the sand whispered threats. And yet here was someone who chose to stand by her, to fight for her, to teach her how to survive. The desert outside was still harsh and merciless, but inside the cave, Mara felt something she had not felt for a long time: hope. And deep inside, she knew that the journey was far from over. The raiders were relentless. The desert was deadly. But she had Tyan, the Navajo warrior, and together they would face whatever came next. She would learn, she would fight, and she would survive. The desert was alive, dangerous, and beautiful in its cruelty. And Mara would no longer be its victim. She was human, and humans endured. The desert was endless. From the cave, Mara and Tyan could see dunes stretching like golden waves, dotted with jagged rocks and dark shadows. The sun had climbed high, but the morning was merciful compared to the fierce heat of noon. Every step was still a challenge, yet Mara felt a new strength in her legs. Her body ached, but her spirit was awake. She was learning from Tyan how to read the desert, how to move quietly, and how to sense danger before it arrived. Tyan led the way, scanning the horizon as always. "The desert has patterns," he said. "Wind, sand, rocks, they tell you stories if you listen." Mara frowned. "Stories? What kind of stories?" He smiled faintly. "Where water hides, where predators wait, where the tracks of the enemy vanish. The desert is alive, and it watches." Mara considered this as they climbed a narrow ridge. Below them, the canyon floor was a maze of sand and stone. From above, the desert seemed calm, but she knew better. Danger could appear anywhere. The raiders had sent more drones last night, and Tyan had been ready, moving them through shadows and hiding spots. Humans, she realized, had a way of surviving even when odds seemed impossible. Hours passed, they had little food left, and water was scarce. Tyan found a small hollow in a rock formation where moisture had collected. Mara drank, feeling the cold liquid rush through her body. She felt alive again, yet the desert still tested her. "Do you ever get used to this?" she asked, nodding toward the endless sand. Tyan shook his head. "No."
You never get used to it. You learn to respect it, and you learn to endure.
"The desert is patient. It will wait for you to make a mistake." Mara thought about the ship, the raiders, the endless sand. She had made mistakes before, countless ones, but here with Tyan, she was learning to survive, and for the first time, she felt she might make it through this. As they moved, the wind picked up. A sandstorm was forming on the horizon, rolling like a wall of gold and dust. Diane paused, shielding his eyes. "We must find shelter," he said. "Storms like this will bury anything in their path." Mara shivered, feeling the first gusts of hot wind. "Do we have anywhere to go?" Tyen's eyes scanned the ridge. "There," he said, pointing to a narrow cave hidden in a rocky outcrop. They moved quickly but carefully, dodging loose stones and climbing steep edges. The storm was closer now, a roaring wall of sand and heat. Inside the cave, they collapsed. The storm raged outside, the wind howling like a living thing. Mara's clothes were soaked in sweat and dust, her skin burning. She felt weak, but alive. Tyen sat across from her, inspecting her injuries.
"You are learning quickly," he said.
"Humans survive because we adapt. We endure. You will last in this desert because you refuse to give up." Mara smiled faintly. "You make it sound so simple." He shook his head. "It is not simple. It is necessary. Humans survive when others fail. That is our strength." They ate what little food remained in silence, listening to the storm outside. Mara began to open up. Before the ship, "I lost everything. My family,
My home. I thought I would never see anyone again."
Tyen nodded. "I understand loss. The desert teaches it in many ways. But survival teaches hope."
You have hope now. Mara looked at him, seeing the determination in his eyes.
She realized that hope was more than a feeling. It was a choice. She could choose to give up, or she could choose to endure. With Tyen, she was choosing to endure. The storm lasted hours, and by nightfall, it had passed. The desert was calm again, but the air was heavy with dust. Tyen led Mara out of the cave, helping her over the rocks and sand. The moon was full, casting pale light across the dunes. For a moment, the desert seemed beautiful, almost peaceful, but danger was never far. Mara noticed tracks in the sand. Alien tracks. Drones had returned, searching for them again. Tyen crouched, studying the ground. "They are close," he said. "We cannot stay here." They moved quickly, Tyen guiding Mara along a narrow ledge above the canyon floor. The drones passed below, scanning the area, their lights glowing. Tyen whispered instructions. Mara listened carefully, moving quietly, following his lead. At one point, a drone turned toward them, sensors glowing. Mara froze, but Tyen acted quickly. He threw a small device, salvaged from his pack, creating a distraction. The drone followed the noise, giving them a chance to move. Mara was amazed at his skill. He used intelligence, not brute force, to survive. Hours later, they stopped near a small oasis. The water was shallow, but enough to drink and clean their wounds. Mara felt herself growing stronger with each step, each challenge. She began to trust herself as much as she trusted Tyen. Sitting by the water, she asked, "Why do you risk so much for me? We barely know each other." Tyen looked at her, calm and serious. "Because no one should die when they can live. Humans protect each other."
That is what we do. Mara nodded, feeling the truth of his words.
She realized that courage was not just about strength or weapons. It was about choosing to stand up, even when the odds were against you. Tyen had chosen to stand with her. She would choose to stand with him, and for herself. Night fell again. The desert was quiet, but Mara could hear distant howls, alien signals or predators she didn't know. She wrapped herself in a blanket, her body exhausted but her mind alive. Diane kept watch, alert to every sound, every movement. The next day, they continued their journey. The desert grew more treacherous, the sand shifting beneath their feet, the cliffs sharper and more dangerous. They had to climb over jagged rocks and leap across narrow gaps. Mara stumbled often, but Tyan's hand was always there to steady her. Along the way, they began to share stories. Mara told him about her family, her lost home, and the life she had before the desert. Tyan spoke of his people, the Navajo warriors, and the lessons the desert had taught him. Mara listened, fascinated. There was a wisdom in him, a strength born of struggle and survival. By afternoon, they reached a narrow canyon filled with jagged rocks and deep shadows. Tyan crouched low. "We may not be alone," he whispered. "The raiders could be anywhere." Mara followed his lead, moving silently. They crept through the canyon, using rocks and shadows to stay hidden. Suddenly, a drone appeared, sensors glowing. Mara froze, but Tyan acted quickly. He threw another small device, creating a distraction. The drone followed the noise, giving them a chance to move. Mara felt a thrill of fear and excitement. She was learning to survive, to fight without weapons, to outsmart creatures that seemed stronger and faster. She was learning what it meant to be human, to endure, to adapt, to survive. By nightfall, they found another small cave. They rested, ate what little food remained, and tended to their wounds. Mara felt a growing bond with Tyan. He had risked everything to save her, and she had begun to trust him completely. The desert was harsh, dangerous, and unforgiving, but for the first time, Mara felt hope. She was no longer alone. She had a guide, a protector, a teacher, and she was learning to be strong, to endure, and to survive. The desert stretched endlessly beyond the cave, golden and vast, but Mara felt a new strength within her. She was human, and humans survived, even against impossible odds. She looked at Tyan, his face illuminated by the flickering firelight. She realized that survival was not just about staying alive, it was about trust, courage, and hope. And with him, she could face anything. The desert had tested her, and she had begun to endure. The journey was far from over, but Mara felt ready. She would fight. She would survive, and she would learn what it truly meant to be human. The desert was quiet, but Mara and Tyan knew it was only the calm before the storm. The canyon had opened into a vast expanse of sand and rock, with distant cliffs rising like walls of gold. The raiders' drones had grown bolder, their patrols frequent, their lights scanning the horizon. Mara's muscles ached. Her body was battered, yet her spirit had never been sharper. She had learned to endure, to read the land, and to trust Tyan completely. Tyan crouched behind a rocky outcrop, scanning the desert floor. "They are waiting," he said. His voice was calm, but there was a sharp edge to it. "A squad of raiders has set up ahead. They are heavily armed, and they will not hesitate." Mara swallowed hard. Her first instinct was fear, but Tyan had taught her something vital. Humans survive not by fleeing, but by outthinking their enemies. She nodded. "Then we plan. We fight smart, not reckless." Tyan gave a small smile. "Good. That is what it means to be human. Now, follow my lead." He motioned her to a shallow depression in the sand. From there, they could see the raiders' position, a small outpost made of scrap metal and alien tech, bristling with lights and weapons. Drones hovered overhead, scanning for movement. Mara's stomach tightened. This was the test, the moment where every lesson she had learned would be put to the ultimate trial. Tyann spoke softly. "We will distract them first. I need you to watch the perimeter and signal me when a drone moves close. Then we move quickly. Timing is everything." Mara nodded. She crouched behind the rocks, heart pounding. The desert had been a teacher, and now it was a battlefield. She saw the drone's sensors sweep over the sand, their alien precision relentless, yet Tyann's calmness steadied her. She had learned to read the desert, to see what others missed. He moved with quiet confidence, placing small devices in the sand, simple human inventions using scraps and clever wiring. They were not weapons, not yet. They were distractions. Mara watched as he carefully triggered them, one by one. Sparks flared and alien sensors followed the noise, leaving gaps in their patrol. "Now," Tyann whispered. They sprinted across the sand, low and fast. Mara felt the adrenaline surge through her veins. She had faced death before, but this was different. They were not escaping. They were confronting it, outsmarting it, using every bit of human ingenuity to survive. They reached a rocky ridge close to the outpost. From this vantage, Tyann pointed out the patrol routes. "Follow me. Keep low. Step only when I say. We move as one." Mara mirrored his movements, crouching low, careful not to disturb the sand. Each step felt like a lifetime. One false move and the raiders would spot them. But she had learned patience, observation, and trust. Every lesson Tyann had taught her was now a tool for survival. A drone turned suddenly, sensors glowing directly toward them. Mara froze. Tyann's hand shot out, pressing a small device into the sand. A flash and a metallic clatter distracted the drone, sending it off course. Mara exhaled slowly, amazed at how human cleverness could outmatch alien technology. They reached the edge of the outpost. Tyann signaled for Mara to stay hidden while he approached the guards. Using the shadows and their knowledge of the terrain, he incapacitated them quietly, one by one. Mara watched, her pulse racing, realizing that human strength was not just physical. It was intelligence, strategy, and courage under pressure. Suddenly, a drone's alarm sounded. Red lights flashed across the desert. Tyann cursed under his breath. Mara felt panic rising, but Tyann grabbed her arm. "Now we move fast. Run." They sprinted toward a narrow canyon on the other side of the outpost. The raiders fired, their weapons burning sand and rock. But Tyann had planned this. He led Mara into a trap of his own design, a small tunnel hidden by rocks. The raiders, unprepared, followed and triggered a minor collapse. Dust and rocks blocked their pursuit. Inside the tunnel, Mara gasped for breath. Her body ached, her muscles trembling, but she felt alive in a way she hadn't before. She had survived the desert, the storms, and now the raiders. Tyann crouched beside her, wiping sweat from his brow. "You did well," he said. "Better than you know." Mara shook her head, astonished. "I only survived because you risked everything for me." Tyann looked at her seriously. "We protect each other. That is what humans do. That is how we survive." They rested briefly, catching their breath. But the desert was not done testing them. Beyond the canyon, more drones and patrols moved in, drawn by the earlier alarms. Tyann studied the maps of the land in his mind, calculating routes and traps. "We cannot run forever," he said. "We must fight smart. We need to turn the desert to our advantage. Every rock, every ridge, every shadow is ours if we use them right." Mara nodded. feeling determination solidify inside her. She had learned from Tyan, and now she would fight with him side by side. The desert had forged her endurance, patience, and courage. The raiders were about to face the full strength of human ingenuity. They moved out of the tunnel, using clever misdirection and terrain to stay hidden. Tyan led Mara along a series of ridges and gullies, setting up traps that used the raiders' own drones against them. Sparks, sand collapses, and sudden noise drew the alien machines into confusion. Mara helped where she could, signaling and timing the distractions. Together they became a force of cunning and courage. Finally, they reached a vantage point above the outpost. From here they could see the full desert expanse, the raiders scrambling below. Tyan smiled faintly.
This is our moment. Use everything you have learned.
Strike where they do not expect. Mara watched as he triggered the last set of devices, sending drones spinning and firing at shadows. She followed his instructions, helping him time each move. The raiders were disoriented, their numbers dwindling. Mara felt a rush of pride and awe. Humans, she realized, could survive anything with strategy, courage, and determination. The desert roared around them, but they moved with precision, turning every threat into an opportunity. The raiders, confused and cornered, retreated toward the cliffs, realizing too late that they had been outsmarted. When the last drone fell silent, Mara and Tyan stood on the ridge, exhausted but victorious. The desert stretched out before them, harsh and golden, yet they had conquered it, not through weapons or brute force, but through intelligence, endurance, and human spirit. Mara looked at Tyan, gratitude and admiration shining in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. Tyan smiled faintly.
You already know. You survived.
"That is thanks enough. The desert will test you again, but now you are ready." Mara realized he was right. She had survived storms, predators, raiders, and the harsh desert sun. She had learned to trust, endure, and fight. She had discovered a strength she did not know she possessed, a courage that came from within, and from the humans who refused to give up. The desert stretched endlessly ahead, but Mara no longer feared it. She had Tyan by her side, and together they could face anything. The final confrontation had been won, but the journey was not yet over. The desert had taught her resilience, courage, and trust, and it had shown her the power of humans when they refused to surrender. As they descended from the ridge, Mara felt her legs trembling, her body battered, but her spirit soaring. She had survived the desert and the raiders. She had learned to endure. She had learned to fight, and she had learned what it meant to be human. The desert roared around them, relentless and beautiful, and for the first time, Mara felt truly alive.